All right, welcome everybody. Can you all hear me all right? Yeah, good. Welcome to this session, Unified Communications Unplugged. I chose to call it Unplugged because there is no technical content, whatever. Usually I do level 400 technical sessions, doing a lot of PowerShell scripts, demos. This is out of my comfort zone. There is no PowerShell. Hopefully some of you find that entertaining. About me, I am a Office Server and Services MVP. Actually, I was a Skype for Business MVP, but they rebranded the whole program and grouped together a lot of functions into bigger categories. I come from Bergen, as you can see. I'm a family man. The dog couldn't speak up for itself, so I chose to use that instead of a picture of my family. I am a chief architect at Datametrics, where I design and deploy Skype for Business solutions to all our customers. And it's during these deployments, some of them successful, some of them not so successful, that I've discovered there are a lot of things that we forget to think about and talk about when we deploy these solutions. So that's what this session is going to be about. It's going to be what are all the things that we should have done before we started typing PowerShell commands. You with me? So I have 4 parts. The first part, we're going to talk about the core questions that this is for the decision makers, really, this first part. Then the second part is what should we do to prepare the organization in order to use and to really get the return of investment of our deployment. And then the third part, which is the fun part, is where I make fun of our internal IT and how we failed to deploy a couple of our rooms. And then we have the ninja slide on how you yourself can improve on using unified communications. So, part 1, core questions. We all know that there is a lot of different applications out there. Skype for Business is one of them. And if you ask me, there's no whatsoever reason to choose another application because it's the best. But most of them do the same thing. They are very much alike, but they are deployed and their uses are, there are different use cases, so to say. But they have a lot of colors, they have all the functionality. What you need to decide is what functionality do you need and why do you need it? If I look back at some of the deployments that I've been troubleshooting, they have been deployed in the standard Norwegian way, which is, hey, that's a cool product. Let's try this internally in the IT department. And they installed Skype for Business, or Link as it was called earlier. They started to use it. A couple of users had some fun. They showed it to some in the management department. They showed it to someone in sales, and they started to spread the application around. And before you knew it, you had a huge, full-blown unified communication application running in this data center, and you had no control and no way of knowing if this was the right thing to do. Have you been there? Anyone done that? Yeah? So what do? Do you buy a new one or do you fix the existing one? Well, hopefully, you will go through the following process before you do that mistake. So, what are the goals that you should consider before choosing to go for a new solution? I would say that you should discover if there are any financial benefits of it. Do you need to structure your company different, organizational? Is there a strategy? Let's say everybody now know about Office 365, E5, PBX in the cloud. Maybe you've been to Ståle's session about it. We want to go to the cloud. That might be a strategy. That might be the solution. But you have to think about it before you do it. Don't just go there because it sounds cool. Make sure that this is the right thing for you, and make sure that the solution that you go for has the required functionality and supportability that you need. Maybe there are KPIs to be reached. Maybe we have a help desk or a customer service that isn't, or we think do not operate perfectly, do not deliver as quick as they should, and we want to improve that, and we're looking for ways to improve it. Then installing a unified app might be the solution. It's not necessarily so, but it might be. Then there are issues to resolve. My favorite one, we have a PBX down in the basement. Nobody dares to touch it. There's a police tape in front of it, because if you're within a 1 meter, it might fall apart and it might stop working. And there might be efficiency issues. You want to improve the way you work. So how do you do that? You need to go through those questions and find your answers. And when you have those questions and those answers, then you can look at the applications and figure out which application best matches your strategy and so on. So, financial, organizational, strategy, KPIs, issues to resolve, and efficiency. Good questions. They should be answered before you choose. Then, we have the thing. We've decided to move to the cloud. We want to go for the cloud PBX. We want to be better at answering and handling calls in our help desk department. What's that? That's a target. That's a decision. So if you look at this crocodile, he knows what his target is. He's there in the water. He's just waiting for his target, and he goes for it. And how does he know he achieves his target? He's not hungry anymore. Do we know what our targets are when we buy an application? Should we set some targets? If you ask me, we sometimes miss those targets. And what are those targets? Well, of course, we want some expected results. One example could be we need to shorten or to cut down on traveling budgets. So within 6 months after deploying this application, we expect to cut our travel expenses in half. And then in 6 months' time, you can go back and look at the budget, you can look at the results and see if that was actually achieved. But if you do not set those targets before you start, how do you know you have achieved something? So setting targets, you need to check the facts and probably follow up with some surveys among your users as well. Are you using this application the way? Is it working the way you expected it to be working? Or will you do as I do when I go out and deploy something? Companies hire me to deploy a Skype for Business solution. I go in, I do my job, I go out. I never come back and ask them if they're happy. At least not their users. I might call the IT department and ask if things are working the way they should. But do they follow up and ask if their users are happy? They should. That's the only way to make sure that your investment is a good advancement. So how do you then define a successful deployment? How can you sit back, smell the flowers, enjoy the view, and relax? Well, if you've made your decisions, if you've set your targets, you now need to follow up those targets and see if you can figure out if they're met. And there are different ways to measure your targets. What I'm used to when I'm deploying in a project, I come in, I have a project manager who says, we need to deliver these services within 4 weeks, within this budget. And when we're done, everybody's happy. But is that really a good way to measure a success of a deployment? Or did we forget something? I think maybe they've forgotten the thing about actual adoption. We deployed something, but are people using it? Are we seeing what we thought we would see? Are people using this application? Are we using the messaging facility? Are we using audio video? Are we using our conference rooms? These facts need to be checked and followed up. And if we do not see what we expected, we might go on to part 2 and see what we should do better. So I'll do an example. I have a customer of mine who 4 or 5 years ago deployed a huge installation, Link 2010, load balancers, a pool of edge servers, a pool of front-end servers, and they were happy with what we did, and we did about 120 hours. And I'm telling you, my hours ain't cheap. So that's quite an investment, just in hours, and then the software and the hardware. 2 years later, they called me and wanted to upgrade to Link 2013. We did that within 40 hours or something. Pretty fast. It's just setting up new pools, rolling out, upgrading, moving. Didn't take long. But now we're talking about 160 hours. Console hours built for me. And they enabled voice at that time. So I said, okay, let's install a monitor server. It took another year, and Skype for Business showed up. We want Skype for Business. So we went through the whole process and did 30 hours more and deployed Skype for Business. And then I accidentally asked the IT admin and said, you're telling me now about these errors and problems you have. Have you been looking into the monitor server to see what the issue is? And he said, oh, I forgot about that. I said, so you do not know the status of your deployment at all? No. This is a 5,000 seat customer. And we went in to monitor server and we checked on unique logins for the last 30 days. 200 out of 5,000. So we spent 160 to 180 hours of deployment, software, hardware, and they have 200 unique users. Those were the ones that were enabled for enterprise voice. No one else used the application anymore. We had a talk, we went through a couple of things, and 2 weeks later he said, we're back at 4,000 unique users. But if you don't have your targets, if you don't follow up, if you don't look into those reports and your hard facts, you will not know if your deployment is successful or not. You may think it is because you're using it and you're happy with it, but you do not know if the rest of the organization is happy with it. Right. Part 2, how to prepare the company so you do not end up as the previous mentioned customer who only had 200 active users. One of the things you should consider is what I call expectation management. There's a railroad track here, and it can go in many different directions. So how do I know which way I am actually going? How do I know what to expect at the next crossing? Am I going forward? Am I going to the right? Am I going to the left? What you should do is make sure that your users know what's coming, how it's going to work. Probably mention what's not going to work if you have a suite that you're deploying and you're not deploying everything. Maybe you're disabling audio video, maybe you're disabling some sharing of something. Make sure they know why, so that when they are engaging with their application, with customers and partners, they know that they cannot share their desktop to an external customer. Because that might not be clear for the everyday user. You know it, you're an IT admin, you're an administrator, you think about security. Users, they don't. They say, this works when I talked to my pal yesterday, it doesn't work when I talk to him. This is a poor solution. It's not. And if the user knew about these limitations or things that you put in place, they won't think of them as limitations. They will know them, they will embrace them, and hopefully they'll be happy. So, a list of future features, maybe a roadmap if you have deployed something and will deploy something else later. That's a good thing. Enlighten your audience. Training. There are two things that most customers cut back on when I deploy Skype for Business. I don't know if it's because I'm so expensive or not, but it's training is the first one. It's just an application. Users know what the applications are. It will work. Is that a fact? I don't think so. Have a look at these dogs. They know instinctively that they are playing for training. They are preparing themselves for real life. These are puppies. And I cannot say how much training is underestimated among users. We have a lot of users that are well adapting to technology. You can give them anything and they'll sit down and they'll play with it. But then you have people who do not like IT at all. If they could, they would take that PC and throw it out the window and still use their notepad, their pen, and that's not just old people. I thought that. I used to think that that's only old people. That's not the fact. There are a lot of people having that IT issue. Something new, something's changing. Yesterday we had a phone here. Today we have, I don't know what we have. And why is this pop-up bothering me? I don't want it bothering me. We need to train and educate the audience. So how do we do that? We can have information flyers. That's one thing. We can go through and have information on the internet. We can spam everybody with emails. Better, we can create videos to share. If we have an internal YouTube channel, Yammer channel, whatever. Or we have classroom training. We can educate super users within departments so they can go and help other users. We can prepare the help desk to have playbooks when frustrated users call in and have problems. There are so many things that we can actually prepare that that so many forget to do. And as I said, different users, they need a different approach. There are everything from those who know what they have this iPhone or Windows Phone or whatever, they have all the applications, they know what unified communications is all about, and when they have a new application, they're happy. And you have the other one that would rather not have the unified application at all. Sorry. Equipment. That's the second post that they usually cut back on when they deploy Skype for Business. And to be honest, equipment is probably the most expensive part of deploying a unified application. And it is one of the most important ones. The one next to information and education. Anyone commute? Would you ride in this train? I don't think so. This is a toy. You would rather sit in a regular train. You would sit in a regular car or a bus or a bicycle or whatever. And the reason why I'm asking this, because this is a trick question. If you don't want to travel to your workplace in a toy, why do you give users toys because they're the cheap ones when it comes to unified communication? There are so many that go in and they deploy huge deployments, and then they go down to the cheapest kind of Best Buy store. I have nothing about Lefdal Expert or anything of those in Norway, but some of their equipment is cheap, but it just doesn't cut it when it comes to audio and video quality. You need to invest in real, proper equipment that's certified for audio, video, or whatever you want to do. And there's headsets, there's cameras, there's the computer itself. Is the computer ready for the load of audio video? How many here uses a VMware or Citrix solution and only use remote desktops as a solution? What happens if you draw audio video through that virtual world? Well, unless you've read the new tech paper from, for example, Citrix and have seen the new VDI version 2, you might be in trouble. So you need to prepare the hardware and the software and the users for what's coming. There are all kinds of devices. There's this Surface Hub that they have down in the expo hall. There's just regular surfaces. There is Link or Skype room service systems. There is other kind of smaller, larger devices, roundtable devices, audio devices. But make sure that you buy the right one for the right function. There's also what I call extenders. There's present extenders, there's remote control extenders, a lot of third-party applications that can help you integrate your CRM systems, your help desk systems and whatever, which also needs an investment. And then there's the dreaded infrastructure. This is a highway, no traffic. This is a Sunday morning, so there's no rush hour. But the point is, when you deploy Skype for Business as a solution, or any unified communication by that matter, you might be taking some audio traffic from dedicated circuits, like hardphones, put it into the data stream, and mark my words, once they start using this unified communication and they discover the beauty of video, they add video, and what does video do to your network? Your Wi-Fi network? It kills your network unless you're prepared, okay? It's really, it can be a lot of traffic, and you need to prepare that highway for that traffic. I just spoke to a customer who said that they're having problems, and I told them that this is the way you need to go Office 365 with that audio traffic. You need to buy that Azure Express route so you can have that quality of service all the way out. If that is your issue, it depends on. I'm not saying that everybody should buy Azure Express route and everybody needs dedicated circuits. It all depends on the usage and what you expect of it. Everybody's happy with regular Skype when they call their grandma, right? But is everybody happy with that quality when they talk, when they have a board meeting where they want these huge screens? I'm not so sure. So prepare your infrastructure. And your infrastructure is this hardware and software, it's network, it's the internet connection. Make sure your firewall can take the load, make sure your internet connection can take the load. What happens when a sales representative decides that he wants to have a virtual conference where he invites 50 odd customers and they all want to join in on the video? How does your firewall handle that? Those things needs to be thought about. And PSTN, of course, audio traffic. And then there's the ease of work that I call it. This is a funny one. Why do we do this to our users? Why do we put hurdles in front of them? We want them to embrace our applications, our deployments. We do not want to stop them from doing what they want to do. And what I'm saying by that is maybe you should help the users help themselves. You could have meeting rooms created for pure video and have that set up in a way that makes it very clear to the user that this is a video room. You can have an audio conference room, you can have a huddle room or a work group room, and you can facilitate, is what I'm looking for, facilitate for the users to embrace your product. And then, of course, it's the number of products, the number of applications, the number of clicks they have to do to achieve something. I remember coming into a old, I'm not going to say old, but what we tend to tell is legacy kind of video rooms. You come in, it's in Norway, probably a Tandberg room. There are 4 different remote controls, one for that camera, one for that camera, one for that video, because it's something that's been built up for a long time and nobody knows which one that works where, unless you're the IT admin and you know exactly which one to push at the right time to make it work. And those are the kind of obstacles that I'm talking about. Why don't you have a touch panel that says click to go and the meeting is up and running? That's how it should work. That's how easy it should be. And it's achievable, but it costs a little bit of money. So the ease of work, meeting rooms, number of applications, and the number of clicks or tasks to complete in order to achieve your goals. Now we talked about some of the core questions, things to do and things to talk about to the organization. Let's have a look at how we did this internally. And I'm not proud to show you the next slides. So, spot at least 5 mistakes in this picture. And this is not a picture that I took standing up and taking a picture. This is the picture I was seeing in this video conference. Sitting here is a CCIE voice expert, one of our top technicians in audio video presentation, our sales manager and our product not product manager, but project leaders in deploying audio video conferencing. Does this room look like a room enabled for video? Let's examine some of the mistakes or things that I think about. Do you see the way that these people are looking? Do you think I feel included in this video meeting? Not much. They're looking at each other, aren't they? And they're talking to each other. And that's a natural thing. I mean, I'm talking to you, so I'm looking at you. If someone stood here, I'd talk to him like that. And that's just the way things are. That's why probably a room more like if you look at huge video rooms, they have a table designed for that kind of setup. These guys, the only guy looking at me is this guy, but he's so far away, I'm not sure what he's actually looking at. And did someone spot the guy right here? Is he in the meeting or what? I don't know who it is. I don't know when he's talking or who he's talking to. This is a not uncommon scene, or was before I pointed that out to our IT department. Then let's talk about the audio part of it. I mean, most conferences are about audio. Video is a nice add-on. Video creates a mess for me in this picture, but there's something about the audio in this room that makes this entire experience unbearable. Can you see the microphones at all? I'm going to help you. Right there, in the mess. Bundled together, in the middle. It's not rocket science. They should be spread out. They should capture the entire room, not just the middle of the room. Not to mention some of the other elements in this picture. Can you see the way that people are sitting? They're talking actually directly into the screen rather than to the microphones. There's a reason why I have a microphone right here on my cheek, because it's right in the audio path. Once you set things in front of that audio path, the audio has to travel around it. This is not a good experience. Okay? By the way, the only guy that I really could hear is the guy sitting here drinking coffee. He's got a clear path to the microphone. And I could hear his drinking loudly. True. Now then. Let's have a look at sound. Are you familiar with amplifying, gain, and all these technical terms? I'm not in a technical way, but I do understand a couple of elements of it. And that is that these microphones are intelligent. They work in a way that if I come with a very loud sound, there are magical things happening in the path that will tone that down so you don't hear it as loud as I'm like it's exploding. So when somebody sneezes into a microphone, if you're in a conference, gain will be reduced, so you won't hear a thing until thing normalizes back to normal again. Okay? And there's a fundamental law that when you double the distance from the source, the volume is halved. So if I didn't have this microphone and we have these amplifiers and speakers, I would be speaking very loud in order to reach the guy on top. And you in front would have a lot of noise. To demonstrate that, we're going to have a look at this setup again. Back to the microphones and where they're placed, and all the devices and things going on in this room, creating a bad experience of audio. Okay. Theoretically, let's say that the distance that this microphone would cover is marked by the yellow circle right here. That's the theoretical range of those microphones. Had they been placed differently, it would be more oval and cover more of the table. But this is what it should cover. So I'd probably hear, I would hear this guy and these guy probably. Not so sure about him, and the guy in the corner here will never hear. But there are a couple of elements here, and that is this gentleman's PC. Annoying sound. And when he starts tapping the keyboard as well, that's very loud. And what the microphone does, because of all of that sound, well, it reduces what it considers as input in order to save all the noise, and that would reduce the area of effect of the entire microphones. So with this PC so close to the microphone, I can just forget about listening to this guy, and the other guys are just mumbling to me. When you have a dominant sound that's very loud, all the other sounds will be reduced. This is bad news, especially when we have 1, 2, 3, 4 PCs. We have I put something here on the glass because it creates resonance, and when people take it up and down and slams it into the table, it does create those spikes that makes it difficult to hear what people are talking about in the room. And this little device here. Okay, hands up. How many of you remember to silence your phone before you go into a meeting? Most of you, I hope. Okay, how many of you use vibrate when it's silent? Some of you. Okay, how many of you put that vibrating silent phone on the table like this when you're in a meeting? Some of you. Do you know how that is perceived in the other end? That's not a good thing to do. I can understand why you do not want it in your pocket, because it's hard to get out once it starts shaking, but put it on your leg. Put it in your pocket in your shirt. Don't put it on the table where it creates noise and resonance for the microphones and it disturbs the sound. And this goes, it doesn't have to be a video meeting. It was just very apparent to me when I was in this video meeting. That's why I took that picture. All right. Now then, to one of my favorite pet peeves, this device. Do you know this one? This is an older model, but do you know this device? It's a good device, isn't it? Or is it? It's good enough in some ways. Do you think that device would save me in the previous meeting that I showed? I don't think so, but many people believe that it will. I was troubleshooting a video conference room. Didn't take long to spot the mistake. The customer had bought these new 810 or 820s, the long ones that are better. And he was so upset, and everybody was complaining how bad the meeting was. And I said, well, okay, let me come down and have a look at it then. So I went down, and what they'd done is that they put that device under the display at the end of the long room, and they expected that to work. People, look at the marketing slide. This is a device that's excellent in a huddle situation. 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe more, but they're positioned not far from the device. Hopefully they talk into the device, and it's not on the far end or something like that. I've seen so many discussions or meetings where, we've got someone remote. Let me just plug in the Jabra device. And there's one guy at the end of the room plugging in that small device. That won't help. The others might hear the guy in the other end when he's talking, but he will not hear what everybody's saying. And we need to think about that when we do these meetings, when we do set up these rooms. If we remember the slide where I said you can create different kind of meetings, create a meeting rooms, create a pure video room, set up the table, a long table with chairs on one end, all facing the screen. Make sure that you have microphones that pick up the sound. A pure video setting. A huddle room, you have 1 or 2 of these, or something similar. Or well, if you have a Surface Hub or a live room systems, everybody's huddled on the screen and designing and drawing things on the close to the device anyway. But do those assessments before you deploy the solution. Because if you don't think about this and prepare those rooms the way they should work and tell the users how they should work, they will find the solution as a bad solution. What I did after experiencing this meeting is I just said, this is ridiculous. This is a brand new office. Why didn't we think about that? This is exactly what we're telling our customers not to do. So is this a huddle room, or is this a video room, or what is it? So we went in, we cleaned up, we made sure that the microphones were fastened in the table so they do not move. People couldn't throw them around. And we also made sure that we educated people that remember when you're doing a video call, the participant is on that wall, he's not there. Things like that, you can prepare the audience for. So, now the ninja part. How can you prepare yourself for a meeting? How can you prepare yourself? What are the things that you can do as a participant in order to enhance the experience? So, you can check connectivity before you start. How many of you have had an online meeting where you didn't start until 15 minutes into the meeting because somebody didn't connect? There's people represented in the room. I love that. So why don't you do that? Why don't you do a check before before you start. I say there is almost no excuse to be late for an online meeting, especially if you're someone like me, because you're just sitting in the same place. It's jumping out of one meeting and clicking a link and going into the next meeting. So when you want to invite someone, make sure that the link works. Make sure that you have the connectivity. Verify that URLs or URIs or whatever you use is correct. And do a check if you're on wired or wireless. I have a PC here. I love it. It's old. It works like a good horse, but it always selects my wireless connection in the office. And I know that my wireless connection in the office is not always the best. Make sure that you use the wired connection, if that's the best, if that's an option. Then you have the audio video part. As I said, how many have been waiting for 15 minutes for someone to connect? There are so many people that join the meeting and we can see the video feed, we can't hear them. Typing, we can't hear you. And then you get back, oh, I'll reconnect, click, click, click. And then reconnect. And we can hear him, but we can't see him anymore. Make sure that before you dial that button, that you have set your application to use the right microphone and the right video feed. It's not that hard. It just needs to be done. And if you have multiple applications that could possibly steal those devices, try to get rid of those other applications, at least for the moment. Also, make sure that you use those certified, slightly less expensive, yes, devices for audio, for video. Make sure that you have a default device that's preferred. Make sure that that device is available. And if you're using Skype for Business, there's a built-in audio checker that you can always use. You can dial in, check your audio call quality. Have you spoken to that lady? Yeah? She's great. And sometimes I can't hear what she's saying, and I know that I'm on the wrong network. Then again, when you're doing presentations, tidy up your screen, I call it. Teach your users to be efficient presenters. Turn on the do not disturb. Remove the garbage. Empty. I don't know how easily confused people are, but if you say squirrel to someone, or if you say banana to someone, someone might actually react, and you'll lose track of it. And that's why applications that pop up or icons that is misleading can create a diversion from the message that you want to do. I'll share this slide for you later, so in case you want to take pictures of it. But remove the private stuff. I don't want a love message from my wife popping up when I'm doing this presentation. So I'm in do not disturb and I disconnect it from the network. That's smart, right? That's one of the things that you should do. Now, you can't disconnect from the network if you're doing a online meeting, I realize that, but you can still close down Outlook so it doesn't have that pop up. You can still close down other instant messaging applications, Facebook Messenger pop-ups and Yammer pop-ups. Close those down. Video room. Going back to that slide, that wasn't a very neat and tidy video room, was it? Make sure that there are no things in the view that distract from the meeting. Tidy up the room. Make it clean and simple to use. We as people are easily diverted and distracted. And position the equipment so it's easy to use and gives the best experience. Now then, to be a good host, I have a few simple rules. You should be on time. You should be prepared. And you should probably, if you can, be a good administrator. Make sure that people mute themselves. Sitting in an audio conferencing center and having someone listen in and participate, and sitting in a coffee room or in the car, we have a constant noise in the background. That's not a pleasant meeting. So help those people help themselves by muting them. Of course, they should unmute when they want to talk, but they don't need that constant noise. Use the lobby. Make sure that when you create a meeting that not everybody just pops in if you want to restrict who's listening in, so you want to make sure who's coming and who's not coming. And use the presenter and attendees function regularly. Because if you're the presenter and everybody's attendees, they can't, by chance, suddenly share their screen when you're trying to do something. Be strict. Be in control of your meeting. That's a good host. Of course, if you want others to share, then make them a presenter for the moment. Be a good participant. This slide is almost identical to the previous one. Be on time. Be prepared. Mute yourself when you're silent. And remember your mute status. You do not want to have a very good, meaningful discussion with yourself because you're muted. I've done that. Doesn't feel very good after, because then I need to prepare myself. And with that, I thank you for your time. And I hope this has been slightly educational for you. And I'll upload my slide for you by Twitter. And probably by the NIC conference webpage later. Thank you.